back. But no one's here. I'm back now, but no one's here. Well, I lost everyone. I'm so upset now. I hope this is working. I really hope this is working. Oh my God. Oh, hello, sweetheart. Hi. Ugh. I hate this shit. I hate technology. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate everything. I'm so full of hate. I'm full of hate and anger. That's what I am. I'm so full of it. I'm so upset right now. But we're going to talk about, yeah, it's working. Sweet. So my techie brother had to show me, and he has to put up with my intermittent explosive disorder. I freak out and I scream and I get all wild, you know. I freak out. Our mother does it too. So, you know, it runs in the family. So, anyway, I was talking about election stuff, and I want to go back to that, you know. So anyway, I'm glad a couple of you are on Twitch. Where's IL? Are you still here? Who's still here? Anyway, I'm just going to start talking. Fuck it. We were talking about the US presidential election, and it's pretty wild. You know, and as I was saying, everything's political. Even if you don't care about politics, politics cares about you. Your lives are affected by decisions that happen as a result of elections, legislation, right? Supreme Court decisions, executive orders from the president. All these things affect your life, you see. So it's important to be somewhat aware. And there's a lot of things to be optimistic about with the election, but I want to talk about some difficult things, right? Number one, Saturn is going to be retrograde during the election, which, you know, is sort of difficult because it represents sort of insurgent things. So, and by insurgent things, what I'm talking about is people going against the rules, right? And I typically think that's the conservative side here because they're trying to lawyer up. They've been packing state election boards with MAGA people, you see. So it's going to get really contentious. And it looks like Kamala will probably win. Like I said, Michael Moore, the famous documentary filmmaker, was just interviewed. I think it was CNN. But he was saying it's going to be a lot less close than we think it is. That Kamala has way more momentum because loads of women are going to be coming out to vote. And in polling, Republicans have been overly represented. So it's going to be a lot different than we're hearing about in the media, you see. And, right, what gives me, he has a good track record for predictions. Yeah, he's predicted like the past 4 or 5 presidential elections. You see, I think at least 4. So, but anyway, like I said, Mars enters Leo the day before the election and will be separating from what? An opposition with Pluto. That typically comes along with, you know, not nice stuff. Oftentimes violence. And in this case, probably political violence. Jupiter's retrograde. Jupiter's been retrograde. Hello, Sibonic family. How do I pronounce that? Is it chow? Chow chow. It's a type of dog, too. Jupiter's been retrograde, I want to say, in the last 4 presidential elections. Or at least going back to like 1988 or 1992. One of those. So it's pretty wild. So Jupiter retrograde often constricts things and tightens things. And we just saw that with the hurricane, right? Whereas Jupiter direct inflates things, right? And I don't want to say hype because I'm so glad there was. It got more people to evacuate, right? Casualties were not anywhere near what they expected, what FEMA expected, what local officials expected. I saw an interview with the mayor of Sarasota, Florida, one of the main places that got hit. And she was saying they got no rescue calls during the hurricane. They got no news of injuries or fatalities. So you see, this is big stuff. The big storm surge that was supposed to hit got blown back out to sea, right? That's wild. So you see, Jupiter retrograde constricts and deflates things. So even though it was a terrible tragedy, it was awful and there were casualties, just not as much as expected. So we can be thankful for that. And less property damage. The biggest, most destructive part were like the 36 tornadoes they clocked as a result of the storm, you see? And we've seen this pattern in weather before, right? There was a big Category 5 hurricane last year, right? It was supposed to be a big storm, very, very scary. I believe that was Hurricane Lee. Was it Hurricane Lee? I think it was. Let me see. I had it all up here. Hurricane Lee. Hurricane Lee. Oops. Web browser. Properties. So Hurricane Lee, it was expected to make landfall with a lot of fuerza, like a heavy strength, right? It was a Category 5 when it was forming, right? Category 5, yes. But then it rapidly decreased to a Category 1, which is what happened here, right? Jupiter retrograde deflates things. So that's lucky in some ways. And it's not so lucky in others. Because you'll see in your own chart, and you got to watch my Jupiter retrograde video, because you'll see in your own chart that the houses that Jupiter rules for you are going to get constricted. I think the solar charged particles from the coronal mass ejections from the sun plays a big part in our climate/weather. I mean, it does to a certain extent, but anthropogenic climate change has been proven, right? I know that's also a conservative talking point, that it's all the solar cycle that does it. And the solar cycle has a place, right? The solar cycle does have a place. Coronal, well, and why is that? Because the magnetosphere of the Earth apparently has been weakening, and it's a natural cycle that happens. However, anthropogenic climate change is also real and exacerbates it. And what that does is make us more susceptible to coronal mass ejections, right? X2 flares, like we just had that, I don't know what magnitude it was. I think it was X2 or X3, but it set off the northern lights that went pretty far south, you see. Maybe that's why the aurora was so, well, the aurora was so strong because number one, the coronal mass ejection, and number two, the weakening of the Earth's magnetosphere, which makes us more susceptible to solar flares, aka coronal mass ejections, right? Sunspots. And when you see these coming off the sun, they look like gigantic explosions, like, and these things would swallow a planet like the Earth. G4X9. Wow, that's pretty significant, isn't it? That's pretty significant, isn't it? So, you know, the fear of coronal mass ejections is the effect it could have on the power grid and all that. The last giant coronal mass ejection or solar flare that we had that disrupted society in some way was in 1832, right? And back then, you could see the aurora, once again far south, but it also ruined the telegraph wires. right? A bunch of stuff went down, apparently. That's what I've read, at least. I mean, that was part of my conspiracy theory days back in, so. But anyway, what effect does this all have on the election? Well, number one, right? We know that hurricanes and all that stuff. Yes, it was the Carrington event. That's correct. Last May was G5. So anyway, but what does this mean about the election? Well, hurricanes greatly influence elections. And you got a bunch of idiots, right? Jupiter sort of inflates things, including rumors. And as soon as Jupiter went retrograde, a bunch of the rumors were stopping. Now we still have idiots out there saying, it's Biden's weather machine. The Democrats, they're blasting the weather, which is absolute bullshit. We don't have the technology to do that. We don't. It would be, you have to understand, a hurricane is like many, 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 many nuclear explosions. It's very hard to, cloud seed, that's like a silver compound that they used to do for cloud seeding back in the day. And it didn't really work very well. So you see, this is all stupidness. But anyway, this does have an effect on the election, right? And we keep seeing further divides in the American population, right? So anyway, but the presidential election, let's look at a bi-wheel, right? What other aspects do we notice? What other aspects do we notice? So Mars square Pluto is the big one. Is Saturn doing anything interesting? I mean, Mercury is trine Mars, which once again is very inflamed kind of speech, It's very inflamed kind of speech. Quantum says LMAO. I mean, did you see Marjorie Taylor Greene's tweets? Like, yes, they control the weather. Show me some evidence. You can't, because there is none. There is none. And it's so stupid. It makes no sense for a country to launch a hurricane at itself. And they keep saying, oh, it's red states. There's loads of other people besides Republicans there, It's just a stupid argument. Anyway. And many of the governors, except for Ron DeSantis, ugh. But many of the mayors, rather. The mayors of various states were very thankful for FEMA and very thankful of the administration. Of course, I have problems with the administration. And I have lots of problems with Kamala. She's a cop. They've been supporting a genocide in Israel, right? Or in Gaza. And giving weapons and stuff to Israel. That's terrible, terrible. We'll probably figure out later that the casualties were over a couple 100,000, Meatball Ron was the best. Yeah, Meatball Ron. Pudding Ron. Pudding Ron. Eating pudding with his fingers. Remember that? Anyway. But all this stuff affects the election. So I want to look at a bi-wheel pretty quick. And then we can look at your charts too. I just want to see more people here. I want to see more people. I want to see more people, Daddy. I've been praying to my daddy Jupiter. Even though I'm like an atheist, I'm still praying to my daddy Jupiter. Oh, wait. Let's view a bi-wheel with the United States and the presidential election. So let's bring up the bi-wheel. Here's the bi-wheel. Hello, Bexy. Hello, my love. How are you? How are you? I had to restart the stream. It really sucked. But at least Rory, I was yelling at him and we figured it out. So, I mean, that's cool. So look at this stuff. The U.S. presidential election. Mars is going to be close to a conjunction with the North Node of the United States. This is going to amplify Martian kind of stuff, which typically means competition, conflict, and possibly violence. Now look at this. Jupiter is exact, going retro, well, not exact, but within a degree or so, of the United States natal Mars. Isn't that wild? I'm at work, cutie, can't watch, unfortunately. That's okay, you can listen. You can listen, Rosa Scrosa. And I can still look at your chart when we get to all that fun stuff. You see? But look at this. Jupiter conjunct Mars. Now, what does Jupiter do? It makes things bigger. He blows things up. And when he conjoins Mars, he often blows up, you know, the angry side of Mars. So I'm just very concerned about potential violence at polling places. Thank God I live in a state where they do voting by mail, you know, which is so much better. It really is. And it's not less secure. It just means more people vote, you know. You're chilly? What is the temperature outside, baby girl? Oh, it says 64. I'm playing in the orchestra, so I can't listen. But please look at my chart, love. Okay. So anyway, it is starting to get chillier, of course. But so these things are sort of concerning, you know? These things are a little alarming. I'm so charming, so charming. It's alarming how charming I feel. Right. So anyway, in early voting, oh, I'm doing early voting here to avoid the Southern grumps. Yeah, I mean, these people are more like thugs. And I watch my Civil War video. And please also like the stream. Become a member, because these live streams will only be available on replay for members. Okay? I gotta start doing that because I'm bleeding money. Like, I'm not doing very well. And I gotta figure all this shit out. I started making grown-up content again, which is fun, but it's a lot of work and it's spreading myself really thin. And then I'm expanding to Twitch, right? So I'm trying to make YouTube more and more into a members platform for my members. And, you know, doing live stream. That videos that I produce take a long time to make. You know, that's why my Lilith video has been a long time in coming. And I'm working on another video that's about my spiritual philosophy and how I ended up here. You know, because it's really important to a lot of you people to see how one becomes an astrologer and also how one kind of moves on a spiritual path. Even though my spiritual path right now is sort of anti-spiritual. Saturn girl, right? I'm in opposition to the light, you know? So anyway, if you want a chart reading, please put your information in the chat and I will get to it. But we're looking at this stuff really quickly. Now look here. This is what also has me concerned. You see Saturn, yes, is square the United States ascendant, almost exactly. And this is on election day. I mean, it's been going on and off. You see, Saturn is starting to slow down because he goes direct. What date is that? I think it's November 15th. Saturn direct is, yes, November 15th. And that's a great one. Guess who else goes direct tomorrow? Fucking Pluto, yo! I didn't have time to do a video on this, but this is a big deal, right? This is a big deal. Pluto going direct. It represents power, right? Pluto retrograde often diminishes the established power, and we've seen so many ridiculous challenges, right? I think Pluto goes retrograde for about 5 months at a time, if I'm not mistaken. Let's bring back up the web browser. Wait, that's the wrong one. Let's see, web browser. Web browser. Why is my web browser all small? Anyway. Where'd my web browser go, yo? I hate technology so much. I hate technology. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. Why are you... Rory, what are you doing question marks for? You gotta... I don't know what you're talking about. What was I gonna look at? I can't even remember what I was looking at now. Ugh. Oh, Pluto, right? How long does Pluto stay retrograde? So May, June, July, August, September, October. Yeah, so 6 months, right? Pluto goes retrograde for about 6 months. So you see, when it... IL, can you also have a look at my chart? Yes, of course. Of course I will. Of course I will. And we'll get to that in just a bit. I just think this is really important, you see. Let's turn off the web browser again for a second. So anyway, Pluto going direct. We'll talk about that in your charts because it depends on which house it's in, right? Pluto went back into Capricorn. So whatever house Capricorn is for you, whole sign house, right? That represents where you were having an additional upheaval, right? An additional crisis. Me, it's the 12th house, right? Mental health stuff oftentimes, right? And for the past 6 months, I've been going through that. But going back into Aquarius here pretty quick. Pluto going back into Aquarius. So anyway, just in the United States chart here, and don't worry, I'm going to get to your stuff in a second. It's really wild because Jupiter rules the first house. Hello, sweetheart. At least I have a couple people from Twitch here. Yay! I need more people from Twitch. So you see here, not only is Saturn square the United States ascendant on election day, which is pretty wild. You know, that's also sort of bad for violent confrontations, unfortunately, which it looks like election day is going to have some ruffians. I did a whole video on the parallels between the Civil War and now, and where we're headed. And yes, if you want a free live chart reading, put your information in the chat. Some people's charts I already have. But you see here, right? There's a couple indicators of that. And Jupiter is also the first house ruler of the United States, right? The first house ruler, for those of you who aren't aware, is you. It represents you. For me, it's Saturn, of course. But it represents you, your body, your character, your mind. And for those of you who are members of my YouTube channel, we're going to do another video just about the first house. And maybe the second, right? Or maybe I'll just do the first house and make it a bit shorter. But for those who attend, and I'll have to announce the date, I'll do first house placements with you and we'll talk about things that happened in your life. So you see, I'm a little concerned with some of this stuff. And, you know, Saturn and Jupiter are sort of on and off square each other until like May of next year. So there's a lot going on. Now, really quickly, I want to show you another bi-wheel. This time with Kamala. Kamala and the election. Wait. View bi-wheel. Here's Kamala. And I'll show you Trump too. Well, and we'll get to your fucking charts in a second, so. We'll get to your charts in a second. I'm so lit up on coffee today. It's redonkulous. I mean, you know. So look at this. This is Kamala's chart. She's got Gemini rising at 24 degrees. Conjunct her north node. And look at this. Jupiter, right? Old Jupy. conjunct her ascendant and her north node within 4 degrees, still under 5 degrees. And Jupiter rules what? The 10th house. Now, Saturn's going through her 10th house, which feels like missed opportunities, right? But then opportunities pick up later, you know? So everything looks pretty good for her, right? Jupiter, her 10th house ruler, right? Mars in her 3rd house, which is, right? When Mars goes through our 3rd house, we say like mean things, right? We say some shitty shit. So it'll be interesting to see how sort of, if she comes out of her shell a bit, you know? Now let's look at Trump's though, because that's sort of interesting too, right? Bi-wheel. Not a high wheel, a bi-wheel. And if anyone wants a chart reading and you haven't been here already, please put your information in there because my readings are the fucking best, yo. And I'm very humble. So you see here, Mars goes into Trump's 1st house, which typically isn't great. It's where we get injured a lot when Mars goes through our 1st house. We see injuries happen, especially in day charts, and Trump does have a day chart. You see? Now, look, Jupiter is exactly conjunct his north node, right? And his sun. So there's a couple competing things here. There's some great stuff in Kamala's transits. And there's also some good stuff in Trump's. Except Saturn is going through the 8th house, right? And what's that typically mean? It means losses, right? It means losses and letting go. Sometimes it literally means death. You see, it can mean a literal death. Why? Oh, never mind. Never mind. I got ahead of myself here. I was looking at the nodes. So anyway, there's good and bad stuff for both. But it looks really good for Kamala. Now, for those of you who are familiar with zodiacal releasing, let's go back to the web browser. For those of you familiar with zodiacal releasing, there's some interesting stuff. So this is Kamala's. Look here. She's in a level 1 peak period, right? For the part of spirit. This is very lucky for her. It's a once in a lifetime thing. She's also in a level 2 peak period, right? That's another once in a lifetime thing. So, and then November the 5th is a level 4 peak period, right? So very interesting. I mean, this is all big. And if we look back at Kamala's chart, oops. Saturn girl will be reading charts. Yes, I will. Just give me a second. I will be reading charts in just a second. I just wanted to look at this really quick, hopefully to give some of you a little bit of optimism. I don't know if you're like me and this is an existential threat, right? Because this election is a real existential threat. Now, one thing with zodiacal releasing, right? Let's turn off the bi-wheel. One thing about zodiacal releasing is you look at the part of fortune and the axis it's in to determine the quality of these periods in your life. Hers, Kamala's, is in Sagittarius, right? Now you want to look at what her best planets are and if they aspect this by sign. Her best planet for a night chart is Venus, right? So yeah, these are pretty good. She's having this peak period in Pisces, which is opposite Venus, which yes, looks pretty good. Now what's her worst planet? Her worst planet is Saturn because she has a night chart. So you see, the angles from the fixed signs will be quite difficult, periods, right? But we have Jupiter sort of mitigating them a little bit. It's just Mars and Saturn are really, crazy there. So she has this wonderful peak period in Pisces going on. Now, how about Donald Trump? Oops. So for Donald Trump, his part of fortune's in Aquarius. So this whole fixed axis, right, represents his peak periods. Now, what's his worst planet? It's Mars. Why is that? Because he's got a day chart. So, and he's entering a first house mega peak period in Leo next year. You see? Let's turn back on the web browser and see. So let's go to Trumpy Trump. See, look, he's got a major peak period. Yes, I do. I do have your chart saved, I'm pretty sure. Trump has a major peak period starting in April of next year. What does that mean? It's not around the election, it's after. So I keep making predictions that something wacky happens with, I mean, I don't think it's going to be like the American Civil War, but it looks like something bad probably happens to Trump because it's his worst planet. He could get, you know, he's not going to go to prison, but he could be convicted of the election interference stuff. Who knows? Either way, what we have to be more concerned about is localized conflicts, really, with angry people with giant pickup trucks, angry people with giant pickup trucks and a small HVAC business. You know, anyway, I'm partly joking. We'll get to charts right now, but I just want you to see here that there's a lot of interesting stuff going on. And if you've been concerned about the election, I want to give you a little bit of optimism because it looks really good for Kamala. And some of you might be saying, well, I don't want Kamala. There's a lot of stuff I do not like about her, right? She doesn't totally represent my politics. But one of two people is going to get elected in November. And it's not Jill Stein, and it's not the Libertarian, and it's not Cornel West. It's going to be either Trump or Kamala. So which one do you prefer? Which one do you prefer? That's the question. Someone the other day said, well, I prefer Jill Stein. I'm like, that's not an option. That's not a real thing. And they're never going to get more than 2%. So we need to stop with that. A third-party movement would be viable in different circumstances if we had ranked choice voting. Anyway, you guys don't care about politics. So we'll look at charts, but you really should care about politics because politics care about you, right? So anyway, who is here first? We're going to open up the floor to charts. So who's getting a chart reading? Oh, hello, Manisha. It's good to see you again. So who are we doing? Are we doing quantum first? The quantum leap? And I think I have IL. Do I have IL? I got Rosa. I do have IL. I have IL. I have quantum. So who's all here? Sound off if you want a chart reading. IL was here first. Oh, okay. See, I can't see because we restarted the stream. So yeah, okay, cool. And I lose my place. So thank you for reminding me. So we'll look at IL first. Okay. Now what's interesting to note about IL is you have a night chart, right? A night chart. I have a night chart too. I'm a moon baby. And what's the thing about a night chart? Well, it means the night team of planets are the best ones for you. So the moon is the light, right? Venus is the benefic, right? The good planet for us. Mars is the malefic, which isn't as bad for us, right? Mars would be called the insect malefic. All this means is, were you born when the sun was out or not? If you have a day chart, though, like Donald Trump, then the sun is your luminary or your light, right? You're a sun baby. And then Jupiter is what's called your benefic, right? Your best planet. And Saturn is your malefic, meaning Saturn is not as bad for you, right? Saturn sucks for us night chart people. So the planet that's worse for you is called your out of sect malefic. For day babies, it's Mars. For night babies, it's Saturn. You see? Ma'am, you're a moon baby and you have moon beauty. You know, it's interesting. Amor, if you have time, could you paste a reading for me? Sure. But I need your date, time, and city. Do you have your date, time, city? So I need your birth date, which you gave me. I need your birth time. And then your city. Oh, wait, that's Bexy. Oh, if you have time, can you do a paste reading for me? Oh, past reading. Yeah. No, I will. Sorry. I thought you were somebody else. We need more people from Twitch. We need to get some twitching. Twitch. I'm stupid. So IL, you have Jupiter and Mars in the first house. When we see first house Mars people, we think of people who've gotten a significant injury oftentimes, or who get lots of little injuries. Now you have a night chart, which means Mars is not as bad for you. So, you know, Mars is lessened a little bit, right? Just like Mars in my chart isn't as bad for me either. It's so funny, we talk about moon babies. And my mom told me years ago that my first word was moon, right? It wasn't mama, it was Muna. That's so funny. My first word was Muna. The Muna was my mama, yeah. I mean, Venus is my mama. Saturn is my grandmama. Oh, you're so sweet, Bexy. Okay, good night, Manisha. I'm so sorry. I have so many international people. So anyway, Saturn is conjunct your part of fortune, right? So that typically means that there may be some health issues. And then Saturn is trine Mars. Now, Saturn trine Mars can be sort of good for discipline, can't it? Right? But let's go back to the sect thing. So the house that Saturn is in would be quite difficult, which is what? It's children, romance, fun, sex, all these sorts of things. So when you have Saturn there, it often represents difficulties with childbirth. Either you have fertility issues, right? That can be a thing. You can have children later in life, have a very difficult pregnancy or labor. Excuse me. Or sometimes, you know what happens? You're a very serious child. You don't know how to have fucking fun. You know, that happens too. I have a couple of friends with this. One is an elementary school teacher, but she works with special needs children, which can get very, very difficult. You know, they can bite, scratch, kick, whatever, you know, scream at you, cuss at you. And so she's got Saturn in the 5th house, and it's a very difficult job, you see. And then she's a Virgo rising. So what does that, I forget where she has Saturn. Never mind. I don't need to talk about her. But you see, and then I think we talked about the moon in the 12th house conjunct the North Node. You know, there's something about overcoming mental health issues, depression and all that. You also want to be careful because, you know, the North Node can amplify the moon. That means amplify sort of the mental health issues, right? Or, you know, we also include substances and isolation and all that sort of stuff in there too. But anyway, we should move on to someone else in just a second. I just want you to be aware. I think we talked about timing last time. I just want you to be aware of a lot of this stuff. And I think I told you Mars is currently going through your 6th house, which can be surgeries. You know, again, it could be accidents, injuries. But when Mars goes through our 6th house too, especially in a night chart, it can represent getting shit done. You know, having to do things, right? You're Aquarius rising like me. You know, I've got to do shit. I'm trying to get all my life together and organized, right? Because I was flying by the seat of my pants before. Anyway, so this is all sort of very interesting. On the one hand, you had your Jupiter return a couple years ago, didn't you? 3 years ago, I guess. 2021. 2021. What else do I notice about sect? Right? Saturn's your worst planet, so that's one of the most difficult areas of your life, unfortunately. You see? And then let's go to quantum function. What about Jupiter for you? Jupiter's going through your 5th house too. So hopefully that's improving your situation a little bit as far as like having fun or with your children. My daughter was born when I had Jupiter in my 5th house, 11 or 12 years ago. That'll tell you how old she is. So you see, difficulties with that stuff. My brother is saying, tell your brother I also say hello. Tell your brother I also say hello. Venus is going through your 10th house. It's so funny because I started my adult stuff again when Venus was conjunct my midheaven. It's so funny. I mean, maybe that's what I meant to do. I meant to just, make money off my body. So. But your 1st house ruler is Saturn too, and Saturn in the 5th house. And like I said, Saturn determines our character, our body, for those of us who are Aquarius rising, So it seems to me that you may have difficult health issues, perhaps, with the part of fortune there. It seems like you may have difficult health issues. Is anything aspecting Saturn besides Mars? Not really. Not really. But your difficulty with the whole children thing, perhaps, would be it's the major source of depression in your life, And learning to have fun again, to enjoy yourself, would be quite important, you see. Oh, you were born in 1973. So you see, you're 10 years older than me. You've been having time to go through a lot of this shit and figure it out, hopefully. So, let's move on to quantum. So for quantum, right, you're a Pisces rising. So the most immediate thing I'm concerned with for you is all the Jupiter stuff. And Jupiter rules your 1st house, right? And then Jupiter is not happy in Pisces. And, right, he's in the 7th house. He's conjunct Mars. But you see, you have a night chart. So this isn't too bad. The thing that sucks is Saturn in the 7th house, retrograde, right? Now, Jupiter represents your body. And the fact, just supportive girlfriend duties, Thank you, baby. Yes, my girlfriend Bexy is very, very supportive. She's very supportive. I'm very lucky to have Bexy. I'm very lucky to have Bexy. Anyway, so Jupiter's not too happy, and then conjunct Mars, right? So what's that tell us? It tells us injuries, right? Potential for surgeries, right? There may have been a significant injury or surgery at some time in the life. Typically, we look for like a 6th or 1st house perfection year for those of you who know what perfections are. I'm not going to go into detail explaining it, But basically, each year of your life is ruled by a house and therefore a sign, and therefore the ruler of that sign, you see? So all that's quite important. Anyway, Moon conjunct the North Node. North Node's going to amplify all that stuff, right? And the 5th house that the Moon rules is children. So it tells me either you have very, very serious children, Put your natal stuff. Yes, please. Put your natal stuff. Put your natal stuff in the chat. So you see you have Venus in the 5th house, which is good for children and all that. But then the Moon in the 6th house, which can make it difficult, right? It can be very serious children, very sickly children, stuff like that. Or very subservient type children, submissive type children, or sometimes, they get bullied in the 6th house. That can be another thing. Anyway, why was I mentioning that? Your 1st house ruler is the more important part that I was talking about. You see? So when Mars goes through your 1st house, that's always going to be a difficult period for you, but just not so bad because you have a night chart. The difficult part is Saturn in the 7th house. My sun is stationed in Asia. I forgot to say the 6th house is also the military. The military. Why is that? Because it's the joy of Mars, right? There are these things called planetary joys, right? Certain planets have a lot more fun in certain houses. Like, for example, Venus finds her joy in the 5th house. And the 5th house gets a lot of meaning from Venus. Yeah? So, excuse me. That's why it's the pleasures of the flesh and the consequences of those pleasures, which is children, So anyway, the 6th house is Mars's joy, and therefore the militaries. So injuries, illnesses, right? Conflicts, fighting, all these sorts of things. Enemies, oftentimes, although enemies are in several different houses. But the military is also there. My 4th house ruler is in my 6th house, and my dad was a combat veteran and a colonel in the United States Army, right? So it's interesting that your son is in the military. I mean, I imagine he is because you said stationed. So you see how literal astrology can fucking get? I mean, I wanted to focus on the 1st house ruler, but that's really interesting. Now, Saturn being in the 7th house can make things quite difficult in terms of relationships. You could get stuck in confining relationships that you find out you wish you weren't in, It can be these long-term kind of relationships. It can also be hyper-independence, you see? What just changed in the background? My background changed. Anyway, it can be hyper-independence too, right? Where we learned early on at a young age that we just can't count on people, right? We always have to go it alone. We have to do it ourselves, right? What's that? Was that Dean Martin or is it Frank Sinatra? I did it my way. It's probably Frank Sinatra. Ma'am, may you read my mom's chart? Sure, but I have an order to go through, and I prioritize people who've donated or who are members, right? So I will get to you. And remember, in order to do a chart reading, I need 3 things. I need the date, I need the time, and I need the city, right? Those shitty relationships are why I'm single for the time being. I roll solo a lot. I mean, yeah, that's Saturn in the 7th house, you see. So I'm not surprised at that. Now, we're not going to beat a dead horse here, but we got to move on. But your 7th house is ruled by Mercury, right? Mercury in the 4th house. So your partnerships are going to be, you're going to crave security from someone, right? I mean, you want to build a home and a family probably with someone, or have someone sort of be part of your family. And when you have the sun in the 4th house, family history, genealogy, your ancestors, all this sort of stuff. Maybe when you were younger, you were like, oh, I want to know more about my past or my family history or all these sorts of things. You see? Quite interesting. I mean, you might even work in real estate or something to do with land. So anyway, and Saturn's going through your 1st house, right? That's a big deal. Going through big transformations in your appearance, your health, right? Saturn's your worst planet. Ma'am, is okay to after this chart. I have other people ahead of you. I have other people ahead of you, sweetheart. I just did IL. I just did quantum. And I had to restart the stream, so let me know who was next. I have the Sibonic family. I have Bexy. I have Rosa. And I have Manisha. So I'll go quicker here because, well, I can stay longer if I have to. I scheduled 2 hours on YouTube and I scheduled 3 hours on Twitch. So anyway, let's go to, just sound off if you're still here. Wait, who was it? Sibonic. Are you still here, Sibonic family? Are you still here? Or Rosa? Please let me know who's here. Put me on the last if you have time. Yeah, we'll have time. We'll figure it out. Tell me if you're still here, because otherwise Manisha needs a reading. But Rosa was supposed to be first. Sibonic family. So please, are you here? Oh, Sibonic is here. So I will do Sibonic family. What would you think about Saturn Girl doing a Silent Hill 2 Twitch stream and talk about the astrological and hermetic symbolism in it? Would people even watch that? That's the only fucking video game I play. That's so funny. I told Bexy last night, I'm like, yeah, I'm playing like the only video game I play. I guess that's sort of funny. I don't know. Bexy, what would you think? So we're going to Sibonic. Sibonic. So the first house ruler is Saturn in the first house. You're another Saturn girl like me. And really closely conjunct your ascendant. Now, Saturn's happy in Aquarius. But having Saturn in the first house is really rough, right? It gives us sort of a sickly disposition. When we're children, we tend to get a lot of like ear infections, sinus infections, colds, whatever, stuff like that. Real talk, I hate video games for the most part. I hate video games too. You know I do, baby girl. It's just when I was younger, this when I was younger, this game was the shit. I mean, it's a very psychological kind of thing. It's a horror type game. Thank you, dear. Maybe a love reading. Thank you. That's perfect. So when you ask for a reading, please give me at least give me 1 to 2 topics that you want to focus on. Okay. Will I get more children? I have 4 already in 6 years. Well, do you want more than 4? I sure hope you don't want more than 4. Goodness gracious, that's a lot of kids. It's like having 4 baby birds in a nest and you have to feed them all. You don't have any left for yourself. So in terms of children, you'd always look at the 5th house ruler. I meant, do you think people would like that? She's just saying she wouldn't like it. That's all. But you look at your 5th house ruler to see about children, right? Which is Mercury. You have Mercury in the 10th house, but retrograde. You were born in 1993, right? So you're still relatively young. How old are you? Oh my gosh, your birthday's coming up on the 5th, on election day. That's wild. So how old are you? How old are you? 2024 minus 1993. So you're 31. So you've just come out of your Saturn return for the most part, right? In March, you came out of it, March of last year. So you're having to deal with the 2nd house stuff. Now, we said love reading, but your money situation is probably fucked. Your money situation is probably really difficult. Now, Mercury in Scorpio up here in the 10th house. You may have a child who's pretty successful in life, Mercury's not especially happy. Although, what's 14 degrees of Scorpio? 14 degrees of Scorpio. That's Venus is bound. I guess that's okay. But more importantly, what's going on now is Jupiter is going through your 5th house. Jupiter rules your 2nd house and your 11th. Now, oftentimes, right, my daughter was born. My daughter was born when I had Jupiter in my fifth house 12 years ago, right? So that often does happen, right? It could look good for children for you. Mercury's retrograde, though, which typically tells me children happen later in life, right? I mean, my Mercury's retrograde too, and I had my daughter at 30. So you said you already have 4. So that's pretty wild. I would have expected you to have children more in your 30s. That's what I would have expected. But again, this isn't a science. This is, this is reading. It's learning how to read things. It's not scientific whatsoever. The only scientific part of it is the trial and error, right? Learning how things mean. Am I married? I'm divorced. I was with my ex-wife for 12 years, and we were married for 7 years. So anyway, but having Jupiter go through the 5th house is really good for having children. So, I just said, Manisha, I'm not married. I'm divorced. I divorced several years ago in 2021. So I'm divorced. I've been divorced for a few years. Yes, I have a daughter and I am divorced. So I also have a wonderful girlfriend. I have a wonderful girlfriend. And I get around a lot, but I'm trying to focus on this and focus on my girlfriend and my daughter, So, I mean, I would say it looks good for children, to be honest with you. Now, I'm saying that between now and May of next year, Jupiter leaves Gemini, I'm pretty sure in May of next year, around my birthday. And so Jupiter will go into Cancer, your 6th house, and mine, which is a time to start cleaning up our lives, taking responsibility for things, and addressing health issues, of which I have a lot. I got chronic neck issues. You see? So, I have a wonderful girlfriend too. Yeah. You'd like her. You'd be surprised how I can go back and forth with her. Your girlfriend, sometimes I love her and sometimes I can't stand her. I wish she just had more self-control. I wish she had more discipline, which you'd think as a Saturn girl, wouldn't you? But Saturn's retrograde, so it's happening now when I'm 40. So, divorce. Oh, you didn't hurt me, sweetheart. You didn't hurt me. Divorce is when two married people break off their marriage. Also, I did not expect I will have 4 right away. Well, I mean, the Philippines are very Catholic, and you may not have been using protection, right? I have Catholic family who have like 7 kids and all this shit, Now, curious if I will have more. If you do have more, it would be now. It would be between now and next summer. Do you want to have more? See, Jupiter going through our 5th house can also mean that we're learning to enjoy ourselves and have fun again, right? But Jupiter just went retrograde, yes? So for you, I wouldn't expect anything to do with children until February, right? When Jupiter goes direct again, you see? So, oh, excuse me. Oh, I'm sorry. Ah. Well, and Saturn is trine your Mercury right now, so. Oh, my daughter's gorgeous. My daughter's beautiful. I'm in trouble. My daughter is absolutely beautiful. Like, I wish I could share pictures, because I'm very proud of her. But, well, I'm proud of her for being intelligent, too. And for being very sweet. She's very kind. Not like me. I'm awful. I'm pretty attractive though, but she's very attractive. She's gonna be a gorgeous woman, you know. So anyway, mm, if there is going to be a time to have new children, it's gonna be now. Where were the eclipses? I mean, so, see your money I'd be more worried about your money situation if I were you than about having children. And if you are worried about having children, it should be because of the drain on your finances. Because if you do have children, it's going to be very expensive. Another child, you're already probably bleeding money. If I know anything about this stuff, you're probably already having a difficult time with money. Right? There we go. So anyway, like please, I don't think having children anytime soon. You know, you can choose whether to have children, at least for now. I don't know what the laws are in the Philippines because it's a very Catholic country, and I don't know who the leader is now. I think you have presidents. But I know Duterte was a pretty awful person. I know Duterte was pretty awful. However, I would advise, like, hold off on having children. Put the attention on the ones you have. And please don't try to have more children. You know? We are in control, but got pregnant again. Well, you got pregnant again. That's Jupiter in the 5th house, isn't it? Right? Oh, you live in Bosnia, not the Philippines. Okay. Bosnia-Herzegovina. That's right. Well, I'm sort of injecting my own values here. I would say not have any more children, but you already are. So you got everything at home. The other kids can take care of the other kids while you're taking care of the baby. And hopefully your husband or your partner is very attentive as well. I mean, you got the sun ruling your 7th house up here at the 10th house. So I hope he's relatively successful. Anyway, we got to move on. Oh, yes, I know. I try and at least be semi-aware of world politics in general because I'm an international girl and a very political girl. Saturn in the 9th house. Politics are also in the 5th house, you know, because it's sort of like a game or a sport. Sports are in the 5th house. Anyway. Good. You're so lucky with him. I'm very glad. Now, after Sibonic family, we have is Rosa still here? Rosa Scroza? Rosa Scroza? Otherwise, I'll go to Manisha. Otherwise, I'll go to Manisha, if Manisha's still here. Rosa or Manisha? Please, please, please chime in the chat if you would like a reading. So, I forget what your name is, Sibonic family, but, whatever you feel is right. I mean, Jupiter going through your 5th house is getting pregnant, isn't it? And that's what happened. It sounds like you're pregnant, right? Now, you were asking if you're going to have another child, but you already know you're going to have a child, right? But that's very characteristic of Jupiter in the 5th house. I am not going to have any more children because I'm focusing on the daughter I have. But it does also mean creativity. And, I'd like to think I would have more pleasurable liaisons. But I really have to focus on this stuff. I really do. So anyway, Manisha. Are you still here, Manisha? God, I'm so autistic. I mean, not so. Cheap viewers on Streambo remove the space. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. Yo, who wants a reading? Otherwise, I'm going to do backseat. I'll do my girlfriend backseat. Because, Manisha, I do not see any birth information from you. You wanted a reading? Oh, does anyone want tarot readings too? Because I do tarot. Because I do tarot. Oh, definitely Sinatra. Yeah, I did it my way. So, Manisha, you wanted a reading for your mother or mother-in-law, but I don't see any information. I don't see any information. Please, if you're just joining us, like the stream, follow me, you know, depending on what fucking platform you are. Follow me, subscribe on YouTube, follow on Twitch. Tell me if you want a goddamn reading. Put your shit in the chat. Are you still here, Manisha? Otherwise, I'll go to Bexy. I'll go to Bexy. And we already talked about the astrology of the election, but if we run out of charts, I'm going to go back to it. So, oh, here we go. The chat just updated. Okay. What's my opinion on critical degrees in a chart? Because I have a bunch of them in my natal chart and I don't know what the implications are. We'll get to you in a sec, Alani. We're going to go to Manisha really quick. But the thing about critical degrees, what some people call anaretic degrees, they really come from a concept called the Egyptian bounds or terms. You see? She put it in the YouTube chat. No, I have dual chats on. It just, the multi-stream just updated. So, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Sorry. What do you want? What do you want from me? That's Meg Myers. So let's do this. But anyway, so the Egyptian bounds or terms I explained the other day. Do I have Alani's chart here? The Egyptian bounds or terms. Well, that's Alani's. Oops. The Egyptian bounds or terms were a level of essential dignity. That might be a little much to explain, but dignity tells you about the power or strength of a planet. So, each sign was divided up into 5 sections, each ruled by one of the 5 traditional planets, minus the sun and the moon. They weren't included. So that means each sign was divided into like a Mercury section, a Venus section, a Jupiter section, and a Mars and a Saturn section. The last 2 sections of every sign are ruled by Mars or Saturn, you see? So that means those last several sections of that sign are going to be ruled by a malefic, and therefore they are the malefic degrees, right? In Indian astrology, I know they considered a planet to age as it went through a sign. So then a planet would become weaker as it got into the final degrees, yeah? For example, where's my Saturn? My Saturn's in Libra. Okay, so the final bound or term, not the 2, just the last one is either ruled by Mars or Saturn, right? So that's just important to note. I keep this dignity chart up here at all times just so I can refer back to it. I don't have all the Egyptian bounds or terms memorized, so. Or all the triplicity lords for that matter. Well, I kind of do. So, ma'am, for my mummy, my mom. Yes, I will get to your mummy, your mom. And I will do Anjali in a little bit. And I will do Bexy. And please, Rosa and or... I forget who else. Manisha, mother. So we have June. Your mom is younger than me? Oh my gosh. Your mom is a couple years younger than me. Oh my goodness. Now I feel old. I'm 41. I feel old. I feel old. Thank you, Bexy. Oops. And please, the order, date, time, city. Otherwise, I get all screwed up. Your mother's name is Tara. Sorry, I have to do one thing at a time. Because I'm Autistic ADHD. Okay, there we go. And I'll put Tara in parentheses. Keep yawning. And I'm sorry. Sorry. Do you have any specific questions about your mother? About your mommy? Do you have any specific questions? We have a Gemini rising just like Bexy. First house ruler is Mercury in the 8th house. That can be very difficult. We see that with people who, you know, either hurt. I see this in Ernest Hemingway's chart, you know, in Ernest Hemingway's chart. So I wonder if her dad passed away pretty young, and I wonder if she's had issues with either depression or self-harm in some way. I don't know. Or if she's had any dealing in criminal activity. If she deals with death somehow on a regular basis. But it's typically very difficult for health. My mother is asking that home conditions are not good. Well, so Mercury also rules her 5th house of home. Excuse me. What's doing? So we look at things aspecting her Mercury, perhaps. What is in a cardinal sign right now? We've got, what's in, oh, we've only got Mars. Mars in Cancer. So Mars is in the 2nd house. I imagine there's difficulties with money right now. Oh, the lunar eclipse. The lunar eclipse was in the 10th house, and the sun was in the 4th of the home. 10th house is life direction. So yeah, something has probably just come to a close with a job or a jobby of some sort. Let's take a look at these eclipses really quick, shall we? So let's go to the eclipses. These are the eclipses for 2025. We're going to have a lunar eclipse next year. That's when something is probably going to come to a close with the home situation. So it's not right away. It's not right away. Where's the 8th house ruler? Saturn. Saturn in the 5th house. Or sorry, 6th house. I'm sorry. Anyway, it seems like she's got health problems. It seems like she's got health problems. I imagine her mother was quite difficult, right? Because Pluto and the moon are sort of, here, I'll turn this off. But you see then next year, let me close this really quick. But you see then next year, September 21st, she's going to have a solar eclipse in her 4th house, which is typically a big move. So, you know, her situation's probably going to be kind of shaky for the next year is what it seems. Let's see how old she is. How old is she? 1985. Let's see. 2024. So she's 39. She's 39. And you're 17. So your mom is 39. I went through 39. What perfection year is that? 39. 36 is 1st house. 37 is 2nd. 38 is 3rd. 39th is 4th. Right? That's a 4th house perfection year. So you see, between now and January of 2025, she's having some difficulties with all this. 4th house perfection year, ruled by Mercury. So that's quite interesting. The home has been the focus. Next year, right, she's going to start a 5th house year. That'll be more about having fun, right? And enjoying herself again. But the solar eclipse next September is going to indicate, right, a major move, a major change. My mother's and father's relationship is not good. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. She's interested in probably difficult type people, you know. Her seventh house ruler's in the eighth house. I don't know. Maybe she gets money from other people or something like that. So, but the living situation is going to improve. There's going to be a lunar eclipse. Once again, there was one just in her 10th house, right? So things are coming to a close with the job situation. And then the solar eclipse was just in her 5th house. I hope she's not trying to have children. But there's a big emphasis coming up, you see, on 5th house topics, especially starting in January. So hopefully she learns to lighten up and to enjoy herself again. And the house stuff will probably work itself out coming into fall of next year. Unfortunately, I know that's a long time. But that's what it looks like with this eclipse cycle, you see? Anyway, we should go to the next person. Who else is still here? So the living situation, just to summarize, ma'am, we are 4 siblings already. Yeah, that's plenty. That's plenty of siblings. You don't need any more. And what's funny about that is her 5th house is ruled by Venus, and she's exalted up here in the 10th house in Pisces. So that makes perfect sense. Maybe one of your siblings is going to be quite successful. I don't know. But I foresee the living situation, continuing to be difficult until next fall, unfortunately. Next fall. Wait, hold on. When's this lunar eclipse? March 13th. That actually may be a big deal. March 13th. Of 25. So yeah, there's going to be a lunar eclipse in her 4th house in March. So rather, I expect this home situation to kind of come to a head or more of a close in March. Something is going to spark her to figure all this shit out, like I'm going through with my financial situation, you see? So that's quite interesting. And she's got, Saturn kind of crossing over her Venus here and there, or getting close to her Venus. So, and Venus rules her 5th house, but also where's Taurus? Her 12th house. So, I expect this home situation to come to a climax mid-March. Yeah. And for a few months after March, so April, May, June, July, she'll be working on either finding a new place or something like that. And it'll come to a climax during the eclipse in September 21st of next year. That'll be in her 4th house. That'll be quite wild. So I hope that's useful. Yeah, the home situation is definitely highlighted. Now, who was next? Put your information in the chart. Date, time, city. Date, time, city. If you would like a reading, and please like the stream and subscribe if you're on YouTube and follow if you're on Twitch. So I guess I'm going to get to Bexy now, unless someone else wants a reading. Please post in the chat if you want a reading. Otherwise, I'm going to Bexy. Going to my baby girl, Bexy. Bexy. Real talk. You're welcome. Where the fuck is... Where was that? Bexy. Did I do you? No, I did not do you. I can get you quick before I get Bexy. Rosa. I did not do you yet. So you're here, so I will do you. Rosa. Let me find your chart. There's Rosie. Where's Rosa? Here we go. Oh, excuse me. Manisha, you can catch the live. Otherwise, they're only available to members later. Unfortunately. I hate to say it, but I have to do it because this is a business. It's not just like me having fun. You know, it can be fun, but this is also a business I'm trying to run. And right now I'm running it into the ground. Please, please. So anyway, we have another first house Saturn. Jupiter rules the first house, Sagittarius, right? Do you have any questions, Rosa? Is there something we can focus on for you? Like, do you want to talk about career, home, love, spiritual stuff? Is there anything you want to focus on? Any questions? Your first house ruler, though. People become members, please. Yes, please. Thank you, Rosa. But do you have a question you want to focus on? Gosh, that Pluto conjunct the moon in the 12th house is rough. Like, that's the first thing that jumps out at me, you know? I'm at a crossroads and I'm going insane. When you say at a crossroads, you mean in terms of life direction? Or what? Career, love, money? We can look at life direction in general, which is your 10th house and things going through your 10th house. Now, you're a Sag rising, so that's Virgo. You're welcome, Manisha. So that's Virgo. You just had the lunar eclipse in your 4th house, right? So that's bringing a living situation or a home situation to a close or an ending. You're having to sort of like square out this part of your life. Maybe you've been having difficulty finding a new living situation. Maybe you have to move out. Maybe one of your parents is sick, right? And they've been having health complications. The next sort of, right, the coming months are all about straightening out your home and living situation, you know? I want to find a new job and move out, all of it. So we'd have to look at the eclipses in Virgo, right? So we have the lunar eclipse in Virgo, right? March 13th through 14th of next year, right? What degree will that be? 23 degrees of Virgo. Do you have any? See, Mars is at 22 degrees of Virgo. My mother has Cancer and I'm going insane with her. I mean, yeah, that's sort of the indicators here, you see. And Mars is going through your 8th house right now. Mars goes retrograde in December. When does Mars go back into Cancer? I believe Mars goes back into Cancer retrograde. Where the fuck is Mars? This is some difficult stuff, baby. I'm sorry. This is some difficult stuff. I should have had this memorized. Mars goes back into Cancer about, I'm not doing it by hours, but about January 6th. So, and Mars won't go back into Leo until what, May? No, March. Or sorry, April. Goodness gracious. Mars won't go back into Leo until April. So unfortunately, um, between January and April, it's going to be quite difficult with Mars stuff. I mean, Mars rules your 12th house of losses too, you see, and your 5th house. So this is going to be a very difficult time. Will it be auspicious for me to move out in a home situation, a job situation? I mean, yes, because you see, the nodes in January are going into your 10th and 4th house. You just had a lunar eclipse in your 4th house. You're in the process of loosening up this this confinement or almost imprisonment in your mother's home and situation. Now remember, Saturn is going through your 4th house too, which could represent, again, I mean, that's indicating your parents and all this sort of stuff, isn't it? With Saturn going through there, it's just very difficult. And I don't want to say anything either way about what happens to your mother, but it doesn't look great. It doesn't look great. So, you see, Mars is going through your 8th house, which can be financial losses or the loss of someone close to us. And Mars goes back into Cancer from January to April. So between January and April, a retrograde Mars in your 8th house is not going to be fun. So, but the good stuff is next year. Oh, I'm sorry. This lunar eclipse in March is going to be in your 10th house, right? So this lunar eclipse in your 10th house, March 13th through 14th, your enemies, your mother and you. It just, yeah, but it doesn't look good for her health, unfortunately. It doesn't look good for her health. I'm sorry. I don't want to say anything either way. It looks very difficult. So, but you see, you're going to have a lunar eclipse in your 10th house here in March. That'll be a big deal. That'll bring a job situation to a close. Maybe you find a job and you have to reestablish yourself. But then you see you're going to have a solar eclipse in your 10th house, September of next year, which is typically when we find a new job or a new career or we change life direction. When the eclipse happens in your 10th house, it shifts your life direction. So between September of 2025 and April of 2026, you're going to see your life direction completely change. These are big events in our lives, you see. These are big events in your life. Now, it's no surprise to me that you and your mother are enemies, right? Because you have Pluto conjunct the moon. You know, that's can be an abusive, domineering, or, you know, a mother who tries to control you. And you probably didn't take well to that, you know? Yeah, Rosa, you should book a private reading because we can look at your progressions. We can look at your zodiacal releasing. We can, you know, we can do a lot more in depth. So now who do we go to now? Bexy. Let's look at my Bexy baby. Bexy, what was that date you wanted to look at? Oh, Alani. That's what we were going to... Alani, are you still here? Alani, are you still here? And when Bexy comes back, she can remind me of what that date is. Of what that date is. Alani, are you still here? Yeah, I mean, your job situation is looking pretty cool. That's going to be it's the 10th and 4th house thing for you, Rosa. It's the 10th and 4th house. You see, the nodes move into your 10th and 4th house in January. Your life is going to be focused on the home and the career situation, your living situation, and your life direction. When I had what you're about to have next year, I quit my job of 20 years to do this shit. And now I'm like, it's not going too great right now. You know, I hate to be negative, but it's really fucking rough right now. I'm like making ends meet barely. And I can only do it for a little bit longer. And I don't want to get another job. I don't want to go to retail or food. Anyway, so Alani was talking about critical degrees, and then we'll go to my dear Bexy. And then I gotta eat food. So Alani is almost a new moon baby. I mentioned that last time. Neptune moon stuff too. You know, Neptune moon, you have to watch out for drugs and alcohol oftentimes. The chat gets delayed. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's all this other shit. You know? It's all this other shit. What's up with Twitch right now? Is that still a thing? Where's that date back? Oh, there she is. Okay. I'll get to that later. So anyway, is there anything you wanted to know about? Alani? I'm sorry, Bexy baby. I'll get to you in just a little bit. But you can come back, you know. You can come back. So Alani, do you have a question? Otherwise I can riff, but I mean, you were asking about critical degrees, right? And we talked about, like, the last degree of Aquarius is ruled by Saturn. So your Venus isn't super happy. But does your Venus have an no? No. We're going to look and see if things are dignified in your chart. So first of all, you have a day chart, which means Mars is your most difficult. Life direction. I've always felt kind of lost. Okay. Well, you've got a bunch of planets stacked up in the 10th house. Your 10th house ruler is Saturn in the 2nd house. So you're fine. It's not like I won't see you in a few days. Yeah, exactly. You see, your 10th house ruler is Saturn in the 2nd house. So that tells me that the money situation was quite difficult growing up, you know. For life direction, though, you look at the 1st house ruler, oftentimes, and your 1st house ruler is Venus in the 10th house, right? Mercury in the 9th conjunct your midheaven. And when you see the midheaven in the 9th house, it sort of pulls those significations there. So I think of things like the law, paralegal careers. I think of stuff like working at universities or in higher education. I also think of people engaged in spiritual work of some sort, or astrology or tarot or something. I was a kid during the recession. My parents went through a lot during that time. Oh yeah, so that's what it looks like. Now your south node is in the 8th house of losses. So that's sort of very indicative of that. Now you're still quite young, February the 11th. You're still quite young. So you're 22 years old. You're way off your Saturn return still. You see? Life direction is going to seem evasive, right? You're going to seem unsure of this all until you're like 28, 29. Around 28, 29, you might have a financial upheaval. You see, when the North Node is in the 2nd house like that, oftentimes you sort of find your livelihood and sort of your way, the way to support yourself. That comes up more in your late 30s, you know, as you get to around age 38 or so. And then after that. So you see, and probably growing up, it felt like you never had your own stuff, right? 8th house South Node is dealing with losses at a young age. So it could have been your parents' losses, or you could have faced death relatively early on, you see? Mars in the 12th house. Mars rules your 7th house. Now, Mars is happy in Aries, but in the 12th house, you may be attracted to partners with mental health issues, addiction, you know, fixer-upper types, weird people, people who are like isolated, stay in their rooms and play video games, or someone in prison. Sometimes we have a partner who goes to prison for a crime. Sometimes we lose partners. So, but it looks like you do have a good relationship at some point because Mars is still happy. And you can still have good relationships with the 12th house ruler, you know. It's just that it's more like, you know, fantasy, retreating into your own little world. You know, I don't want to say this, but sometimes I think of Sid Vicious and Nancy. You probably don't know who the heck they are. But difficulties with dad? No. The sun rules your 10th house and is not happy in Aquarius. So, life direction. Life direction. I mean, being visible is a part of your whole thing. Life direction is, you know, your first house ruler is in the 10th house. That indicates life direction is a big part of your life, right? Or, I mean, it is for everyone. But you see, like the whole contemplating stuff like this. And look, your first house ruler is conjunct Uranus. So lots of unexpected things happen to you from all this sort of stuff, you see? It's lots of unexpected and tumultuous, out of left field type life changes. Saturn. Learning how to provide for yourself is the biggest thing with Saturn in the 2nd house, ruling your 10th as well, and ruling your 9th. Finding a job at a university, perhaps. Getting into academia, paralegal stuff. You know, you're already interested in spiritual stuff. You probably had religious parents or something early on that, you know, you got a bad taste of religion growing up, I'm sure. You know, and if you're engaged in a spiritual thing, it's not going to be what your parents do. You know, it's not going to be what your parents do. You have Saturn going through your 11th house right now. You just had the lunar eclipse in your 11th house. You're going to have another lunar eclipse in March in your 5th house. Yeah. So this means your networks, like-minded people, optimism, groups that you belong to, social network, these things are going to be amplified in your life pretty quick, you see. This is sort of a wild time. But it should be an optimistic time too, because it's, you see, it's when we start reconnecting with people. If you let relationships fall by the wayside, you might start reconnecting with people again. Or the opposite. You've got to cut old people off that are dragging you down. You may have some friends, right, that are just always a burden, and you're always just having to their presence can be heavy. They're always negative, and you may need to just let them go out of your life. That's another thing. But then next year, you're going to have the solar eclipse in your 5th house. So watch getting pregnant. Watch getting pregnant next September through April. Could be a time where you get pregnant. You have Sagittarius parents. They're also very religious, devoted Catholics. Yeah, see, that makes sense. Gaining motivation is hard with Mars in the 12th house. Yeah, but at least it's in Aries. I mean, that's a saving grace. That's a saving grace. 12th house ruler in the 12th house, right? I mean, that sort of means your own sense of isolation. You see, and look, Mars and the moon are sextile. When you have moon in Aquarius like this, it gives us a very cerebral disposition, right? We try and overanalyze our emotions. We may seem cold or austere or just unemotional in some way. Like we may seem, one of my mentors had this, and he was very harsh, right? You might come off as a very harsh person sometimes, or at least extremely passionate, but then you have a cold demeanor or disposition. You may still be very warm and feel fuzzy on the inside, but look at all this. Venus in Aquarius too is quite, I mean, I've got some exes with Venus in Aquarius. I love Venus in Aquarius. It's like Elsa, right? Let it go, Can't hold me back anymore. Let it go, let it go. Right? Turn away and slam the door. Anyway, I don't want to scare my neighbors. But it can be a bit of an ice queen. It gets a reputation, really all of these placements, for being very detached and aloof. And for seeming cold and unemotional, right? Saturn ruled. Now, you may not be totally cold and unemotional, right? You may have some warm stuff going for you. But still, you see how pronounced this is. So you'll come off, right? You'll come off perhaps as a bit harsh. At least that's how I'd imagine it. And being at the very end of a balsamic moon, you might seem a bit depressed and melancholy. You know, you might have sort of a gothy demeanor or something like that. Gothy demeanor. I try to seem warm, but I have social anxiety and it makes me act weird. Yeah, I mean, Venus conjunct Uranus. Usually I'd usually expect to see Venus aspecting Saturn, especially for, well, for the social awkwardness thing, but it makes sense. Look, and Venus is trine your north node. Venus is trine your north node. And really, that is an auspicious thing. Do you have any retrogrades? Not really, no. And you're part of fortunes in the first house. You see, this is about building your own self-confidence and relative independence, you see. But the spiritual life will be really important to you. You're not going to be satisfied if you're not pursuing that part of your life either. But the most important thing you need is recognition, right? You need success. You need accomplishment. So you're going to feel directionlessness. Oh, you do have Jupiter retrograde. That's right. Jupiter rules your 8th house and your 11th house. I mean, that could mean getting an inheritance. It could mean you get an inheritance at some point. You're about to have your Jupiter return next year. I can't do all these timing techniques, but you may have an inheritance coming to you with an exalted Jupiter retrograde ruling your 8th house. But it would happen later in life, you see, because Jupiter's retrograde. Now, you want to be careful that you don't lose it, but you have a day chart, right? You were born when the sun is out. Jupiter's your best planet, and he's exalted in Cancer. So you see, this is pretty auspicious. Now he's opposite Chiron, which isn't fun, but we're not going to trip out on that too much. But that is really good. You see, that is really good. But as far as your life direction, it's about getting recognition and accomplishing things. I see this oftentimes when we have like low confidence, right? But you get confidence from accomplishing things and doing things, you see. So you need to start putting yourself out there. You know, either apply for jobs, try and find a career that, you know, speaks to you or something. Or try to start a business. Your North Node's in the 2nd house, which is sort of kind of like starting a business at some point. Maybe more in your late 30s. But money situation would probably improve. Or your life direction as well, your job situation, as you got into your late 30s. You see? So, I mean, hopefully that's semi-good news, right? You're also going through these eclipses here. And hopefully you're starting to get more support. You already talked about the friend shit, didn't I? What else? Venus has been going through your 7th house. When does Venus go into Aquarius? That'll be your 10th house. Yeah, you're going to have your Venus return. When does Venus go into Aquarius? Venus. Oh, Venus goes retrograde in April next year. Actually, Mercury and Venus go retrograde around the same time. That's pretty wild. Oops. Dude, cat, chill. Chill, cat. Wait, why is it going? Where the fuck is Venus? What, cat? Cramping my style, homie. So Venus goes into Aquarius around December 7th. A day that will live in infamy. I've been thinking about dating lately. I mean, you really should while Venus is still in Scorpio. Because Venus will leave Scorpio in just a week. Right? Next week, Venus leaves Scorpio. But again, how old are you? How old did we say you are? 22. So 24, 23, 22. You're in 11th house perfection year. So you should be getting out and, meeting like-minded people. And, it's about optimism and getting support for others. And it's a Jupiter year for you, which should be sort of auspicious. I can't remember what I was thinking. Eclipse. Oh, Venus in Aquarius. Yeah, your Venus return starts December. In fact, Venus is going to cross your midheaven when? 24 degrees. So that'll be interesting. Venus will cross your midheaven December 2nd. So December seems like it's going to be a good month for you. I would imagine December would be a good month for you. Anything else interesting? And then I gotta move on. Pisces, no. You've been having Uranus in your first house for a while, though. That's pretty wild. Anyway, anyone else wanted a reading, or else I'll talk about... Yeah, that's probably Venus that's been trying to get you to date. Just want to know your opinion. Many years ago, one lady did a tarot reading on me. She mentioned that I will be rich when I enter into my 40s. How she come up with... I don't know what people do. I don't know why people do that kind of shit. Oh, you're still here. Okay, let me get to you, Bexy. They said you're going to be rich when you enter your 40s. Jupiter's conjunct a very happy Venus, but I don't necessarily see where they get that. Like, you don't have... I mean, it's conjunct a very happy Venus. I don't know where they got that from. What about inheritance, Mercury? And I wouldn't say you're going to be very rich. Now, you may have at least a relatively good income, or at least middle of the road, but I don't see why they would tell you that. So, I'm not sure why they would tell you that. I would love to hear their reasoning. I mean, I typically think people are full of shit anyway. Oops, 2010. I typically think people are full of shit, especially in astrology. Well, I mean, Not good astrologers. I mean, they're like, I've been watching Chris Brennan all this morning, and he's amazing. I guess I'll say this is. What was 2000? Like, Bexy, I need a place for 2010. Can you tell me, like, a city, and I'll just make up a time? Bexy, please tell me a city. She guessed it right about going and living abroad. Well, good for her. I could be wrong. Maybe you're going to be rich. I don't see it. I don't see it. If she's right, wonderful. You're going to be rich. I don't see it. I see Jupiter conjunct a very happy Venus. Jupiter, though, in Libra, see, it looks like that's Mars's degree. So I don't know. I mean, Venus is happy. Which is she? Anyway, let me look at Bexy. I'll look back at yours in a second. I don't see that. Chris's bald head is so soothing. Chris is an Aquarius rising like me. And some of you other people. Some of you other people. A bi-wheel. A barrel roll. A barrel roll? A barrel roll. Amber, you just got fired today. Wonderful. Wonderful. It's the last thing I wanted to fucking hear today. Ah, Amber, Amber, Amber. So, Bexy, around this time, you had some very interesting stuff. What strikes me at first is Jupiter conjunct Venus in your 10th house, which is typically auspicious. But where were the eclipses in 2010? Like, eclipses are such a big part of my practice now. I think I want to write a book about eclipses someday. I want to write a book about eclipses. Wait, what was your date, Bexy? Was it February? February. I'm sorry, Amber. I'm just a little pissed about it. I'm sure you are too. Just a little pissed. Okay, so it was the 16th. Okay. Okay. So the eclipse is in 2010. Jesus, you had a solar eclipse right before then. January the 15th. January the 15th of 2010. January the 15th of 2010. So the eclipse, wow, it was conjunct Venus. It was conjunct Venus. All these in Capricorn in your 8th house, which is death. So you had a major solar eclipse in your house of death. The North Node was there. So I imagine someone passed away. Where's Mercury? Mercury's there too. Mercury's there too. I think someone might have passed away. Mercury represents your father. Well, the sun also represents your father too. Goodness gracious. This was all at 25 degrees, so it was conjunct. Oh, wait, hold on. This was all at 25 degrees. Where's natal Mercury? Scorpio. Wow. You see, the North Node was exactly sextile your Mercury, which is your father. Was your dad in the military too? Oh, good. See, this is good stuff though for a job. You got a really happy Jupiter and Venus up there in the 10th house. So you may have gotten some good recognition back then. But it looks like a death probably happened. It looks like a death probably happened. Do you have a night chart? Oh my God. Look at that. I didn't see this at first. Saturn is retrograde right on top of Jupiter. Right? Jupiter rules your 7th house of partners. Maybe it's when you had a relationship, like a relationship got really sort of committed or intense. A relationship got really committed or intense. Because Jupiter rules your 7th house and Saturn rules your 8th and 9th house. So a big journey, a big trip, right? Leaving home. Leaving home. Goodness gracious. Leaving home. I don't want to look at the chat yet. So Saturn, goodness gracious. Yeah, but Saturn rules your 8th house too. That could also be a death. You know? Where's Pisces, your 10th house? Right? Job and death. What? Shit fucking wild, yo. My dad passed away that day. Max Wild, I had 2 job opportunities blow up this week, not doing well financially. If you would like a reading, Max, just put your birth information in the chart. It's date, time, and city. So I need your birth date, the day you were born. I need the time of day. Hopefully, some people don't know it, and then we just have to say noon. And then the city you were born in. Okay? If it's not in the United States, I might need the country too. I know a lot of the world geography, but not all of it. Sorry, my nose leaks ever since I got this surgery to help me breathe better. It didn't even work, and now I'm paying it off. I hate that surgeon. He fucked everything up. Venus was retrograde when I had my surgery. So yeah, but I wonder if something happened with the relationship too. See, Saturn is death. The 7th house is typically your partner, you know? So I would have expected a commitment to have also deepened. And then Saturn's your 9th house of long journeys and foreign cultures. So a foreign partner, right? A partner from a foreign culture, you know? We already know about that. Yeah. A deepening of a commitment, a death, and a move. Probably. Probably. Where were those eclipses? Capricorn. Oh yeah, the house of death. I already said that. The house of death. That should be my new nickname, the house of death. Which state do I live in? I'm in Colorado. I'm in Colorado. Let's get to Max Wild. Was there anyone else here I missed? But yeah, that shit's fucking wild, yo. So anyway. So anyway, well, I'm sorry, sweetheart. I'm sure if we did a more in-depth thing for you, we would see more stuff in your zodiacal releasing and your progressions. So I'll hang around for a bit more because on Twitch I was scheduled to be on for 3 hours. So the fact that I can talk for 3 fucking hours is pretty impressive. At least I think so. So Ilani was talking about the critical degrees. I think I mentioned that. Oh, what? Who was mentioning something? I don't remember. I should get to this new person. Max, have you been with us before? I don't remember. Have you been with us? Yeah, I live in Colorado. I love Colorado. That really is. At 2 hours in tapped from speaking. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the Twitch streamer I follow primarily, Hassan Piker, because I'm really into politics. He streams for 8 hours a day, like 5 days a week, like a full-time job. I couldn't do that. Oh, you have to jet. Thank you so much, sweetheart. Thank you for coming and thank you for supporting me. So let's do Max. Max Wild. You're stayed away in Kansas. Yeah. I'm over, the metro area. I probably shouldn't say that out loud because lots of people would love to not do nice stuff to me. Yes, I love Hassan too. I love Hassan very much. I really do. I also love the Majority Report with Sam Cedar. He's my favorite. I love Sam. And oh my God, I want to do things to Emma. Emma is my girl, but she's, married or engaged. Maybe she's poly. I don't know. I have enough with my girlfriend Bexy. I've got plenty to keep me entertained and satisfied. So Max is April 21st, 1991, 6:30 p.m. Oh my gosh, you're in St. Petersburg, Florida, or you were. God bless. I hope your family's okay. Jeez Louise. Yeah, St. Petersburg was one of the main spots that was hit. My nickname was Sam because I had that haircut. Sam Cedar is a DILF. I mean, I might let him, do things to me. And I might, do things to him. I can't be... See, as I'm on Twitch, I can't, make blatantly sexual comments. But, yeah, I can imagine myself getting down with Sam Cedar. But Emma is my girl. Ooh, Matt Leck. Alani, if you know Matt Leck, yeah, Matt Leck is such a cutie. No one ever gives Matt Leck love. I think he's adorable. I would do fun things to Matt, Or he could do fun things to me, because I love Matt Leck. Matt Leck, he's the one in the background. He's very intelligent, very well read. So here's Maxie Max. Max. We got Max. A Libra rising. You just had that big eclipse in your first house. This is a wild time for you, sweetheart. This is a wild time. This is a wild time. You see, when you have the eclipses going between your first and seventh house, there's an existential crisis going on. And oftentimes it affects our relationships. So that means they got hit with the wind and property damage, but otherwise okay. Yeah, God bless. And just for your edification, Max, because we were talking about some of this stuff earlier, we often see Jupiter retrograde mitigating storms, actually causing them to deflate and getting less dangerous, right? Which we saw last year with Hurricane Lee, right? Which there were evacuation notices and flood watches, and they were called off, right? Yes, we had flood watches for Milton, but they were calling it 100-year storm. Now, there were 36 tornadoes that were clocked, but Jupiter retrograde, I did call it, decreased the fatalities and decreased a lot of the damage. I'm not trying to sound glib, and believe me, I don't want to dismiss the pain and suffering that anyone has endured, of course. But the experts, the storm experts, and the first responders were continuously remarking on the news that it could have been way, 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 way worse. Right? We were expecting a 15-foot storm surge, but not even close in the Tampa area because the wind blew it all out to sea. So we didn't get the same level of destruction that we expected, and that's definitely characteristic of Jupiter retrograde. So anyway, so you probably had a big or significant breakup in it could have been April of last year, and it could have been April of this year. You could have met a new person, right? Because these eclipses. But then you've been having big changes either in your health, right? Or your personality, your character. Yeah? These things often accompany an eclipse in the first house, which you had one, in September. Or was that, I can't remember. It was October 2nd. That's what it was. So over the next 6 months, you can expect this heavy existential crisis to sort of come to a close. Now, the lunar eclipse was in your 6th house. So now you're going to be dealing with a lot of the fallout, health and mental health stuff from this past cycle, from 2023 and 2024, because the nodes are going into your 12th and 6th house. And this oftentimes feels like a cocoon period, right? We go through all these like heavy experiences in the previous eclipse cycle or previous eclipse phase, right? I divide the nodal cycle, the draconic cycle. I divide that up into 6 sections, which I call eclipse phases. And you're in this 1st and 7th house phase, which is sort of like starting over again. Start again. It's a nice day for a white wedding, right? And this is all coming to a close. Now, it's going to feel like a butterfly in the cocoon for a little while because we have to assimilate these things that we've gone through because you're changing as a person, changes your mind, changes your character, changes how you relate to yourself, right? Our relationship to ourselves changes often as we go through a big breakup or something else, And how we relate to other people affects how we relate to ourselves and vice versa. If we're not finding confidence in ourselves, what's your 1st house ruler? Venus. Yeah, in Gemini, in the 9th house. You see, you're decidedly probably a very spiritual person. I mean, you've been interested in astrology and tarot or spirituality or whatever since you were probably a kid. And so you won't be satisfied in life unless you're addressing the big questions, you see? Why are we here? What does it all mean? Yeah? All that fun stuff. Let's see. I did meet a new person 3 months ago. Yeah, so that would have been September, August, July. So it would have been July, right? Just a few months after that solar eclipse in your 7th house. That was April 8th, right? So April, May, June, July. So just 4 months after, right? That's within that 6-month period. So whatever this new relationship is, it's probably, I would imagine it's giving you more confidence. It's probably, helped you to see yourself in a new way then. Hopefully it's more positive. So you're going to see some probably still existential crises, but more things to do with how you relate to yourself. Yeah, it's the self. The 1st house is the self, right? Now it could affect your body too and your health issues. Now in terms of we just talked about the other eclipses, But Jupiter is going through your ninth house too. So you see, this is a very potent time. Maybe you meet a mentor. Maybe you meet a man who's very spiritual or into spiritual things, right? Or into legal stuff or politics, or just a straight up person from a foreign culture, right? Or speaks a foreign language. So all these sorts of things are characteristic of that. And then further health stuff, Saturn's going through your sixth house. It's like picking up the pieces of the things you've avoided, you know. Now Saturn's going to go into your seventh house, right, next year. So that can either strain relationships or it can deepen commitment. Sometimes we feel trapped though. Like for example, I moved in with my ex-wife when Saturn was going through my seventh house, right? And that sort of was the beginning of moving towards marriage, you know? So you see the deepening of commitment, but then it also became very confining and very, you know, I'm not saying that will necessarily happen. Saturn is my most difficult planet. Yours is Mars. And you're having your Mars return, and your Mars isn't very happy, you see? Mars is what's called in fall in Cancer. So you may have been getting a bad reputation lately or gotten in fights with bosses. Maybe you quit a job or had conflicts at work, right? Or like I said, we can, you know, do something scandalous that gives us a bad reputation. For me, like I started making adult content one time when Mars was in my 10th house, you know, or yeah, my 10th house. So anyway, my Venus in Gemini often makes me feel trapped, which is why I feel polyamory makes sense. Yes, you see, I'm polyamorous too. My girlfriend's polyamorous, right? It makes a lot more sense for me, and for although I'm more ethically non-monogamous. Like I don't have time for other relationships besides my girlfriend. I just have time for, you know, casual things. But I need to focus on this more. I've spent so much of my time over the past year just focused on sex, you know, getting out there, having fun. It's wild, you know. I'm not trying to brag or anything, but before age 38, I'd had 20 partners, right? But then from age 40 to 41, I had an additional 20 partners. In fact, I stopped counting at a certain point. So I don't know how many anymore, but it's probably over 50, you know? And I don't care about the numbers anymore. What's really interesting, though, is how everything sort of blossomed and blew up for me, right? And you could see that in my chart as well. So, but anyway, yeah, polyamory. I totally agree with you. Venus in Gemini needs lots of different experiences. When Venus is in the ninth house, it needs deep people, intelligent people, people who can meet on your level with your values or your beliefs, or at least talk to you about them and have some understanding, right? You may be interested in politics too, you know? So, but that's very important for you. Now, in terms of partners, you've probably had some difficult relationships, you know, with Mars not being happy. And you're probably attracted to, you know, popular people, people who are arm candy, perhaps, people who you look good with, you know, on your arm or on their arm, that kind of thing. Successful people, people who have their shit together. But sometimes on the negative side, it can be narcissistic people or people who use you or whatever. I mean, the using thing's more the eighth house, you know, but people who don't pay enough attention to you, you know, like they're way more into their own shit or into their own reputation or whatever. Life direction has always been hard for you too. So that can be quite difficult. That can be quite difficult. Sun square Jupiter, though, like you probably can be a little pompous, huh? Or at least you always think you're right. Yeah. Always think you're right. I am right. That's wrong. I mean, you have a Leo moon, too. I mean, you could be sort of popular yourself, you know? Although your sun's in the eighth house. That can be rather difficult. Attracted to criminal enterprises. Maybe you had friends who were drug dealers or did shady things growing up. Like, what's UDC? I got busted with astrology and witchcraft books by my parents at 11. Yeah, so, I mean, there you go. Your ninth house ruler is... So you always look to the ninth house for that stuff. Your ninth house ruler is Mercury retrograde, right? In the seventh house. You know, all the good stuff of the ninth house would happen later in life. My Venus in Gemini... Okay, yeah. Okay, I divorced an abusive partner 3 years ago. And they definitely were using me. Yeah, I mean, that's 8th house. You do have an 8th house sun, you know? I told my partner, and yes, I told my partner that just know that I'm right all the time. Yeah, I know. Jupiter stuff. And Jupiter conjunct the moon. I mean, it's very gregarious. It can be very sweet, very inclusive, very welcoming. But it can think very highly of itself. Now, you may be a little athletic, or you may have good health, perhaps. Or maybe you sort of put on... Jupiter can make us put on weight, too. Jupiter moon can make us put on weight, you see. Is there anyone else? I just kind of beat this to death here. You know? I kind of just beat this to death. Is anyone else here? Hello, hello. Is there anybody out there? Is there anyone at all? That's Pink Floyd. I forget the lyrics, but you know. I forget the lyrics. I forget the lyrics. Venus in the ninth house, though. Venus in the ninth house. And she's trying your ascendant. So that's very auspicious. You're probably very attractive. But you see, you sort of have this ground trine, as it were, with Saturn, Venus, and the ascendant. See, you have Saturn trine your ascendant. I have Saturn square. You know. Do you recommend any astrology books? Yes, I do. I do. I have many of them right here. Because people ask me all the time. And so, they do it all the time. Yeah, yeah. They do it all the time. Yeah, yeah. So number 1, this is the best. And there's 2 of them. And these are kind of expensive. Each of these, I think, is around $50. This is Ancient Astrology, Theory and Practice, Volume 1, by one of my heroes, Demetra George. This is like one of the best, but now there's 2 of them. This one is about planetary condition. And then this one goes into all the houses and techniques, right? So I really think people should own both. Do you guys believe in witchcraft? I don't believe in anything. I don't believe in anything. And I think most people who are into witchcraft are looking for empowerment. And a lot of us are women who are interested in witchcraft. And I say, you're better off doing things, like accomplishing things, studying. Or if you got a problem with someone, like I see women like, oh, I don't like her, so I'm going to do this spell. Why don't you go talk to her or go start shit with her? Like, why do you, to me, the witchcraft side and I love ritual. I'm a Freemason. I've been a Freemason for 18 years. I think ritual's important and potent, but it's not for doing things to people. It's for you. It's to prepare you for revelation or understanding. When you're doing a ritual, you are performing on yourself. You are going through these actions and motions. I'm saying this as someone who's been a ritual magician or whatever. I guess you could say witch, right? Even though I don't believe in witchcraft. But I did it for many, many years. And witches are like, you just weren't doing it right. No, I think it's stupid. I think it's stupid. I think you should be out doing things, accomplishing things, working towards goals, and not worrying about other people and putting spells and hexes on motherfuckers. To me, that's That's a waste of time. Empower yourself. See, I know a lot of us women do witchcraft for a sense of empowerment, but it doesn't empower us. It's LARPing. It's cosplay. We're making ourselves feel better. For all intents and purposes, it's masturbation. It's to make us feel better about having a lack of power. Now, I know a bunch of witches will get mad at me, and I've probably been hexed more times than I know. But let me keep showing these books to people. So, Demetra George. And I have no problem with people practicing witchcraft. I just think they have better things to do. I think they could be spending their time in more constructive ways than in, putting herbs in glass jars and burying them in places. Now, with all that said, I still use this, the Picatrix, right? This is astrological magic, and I still do it. Even though I'm talking crap about witchcraft and everything else, I still find value in astrological magic, right? To me, as someone more interested in Buddhist logic, I know that gods and deities aren't ultimately real. They're empty. Everything that's conditioned is empty because nothing is independent and nothing is changeless. There is no essence. According to the Buddha, there's no soul or God, right? But as Max Wilde is saying, I believe in energy and directing it to places, but not witchcraft per se. But when people say that, Max, a lot of times they have no clue what they mean by energy. I ask new agey people or witchy people or spiritual people, I'm like, define energy for me. And usually it's some nebulous thing that they can't describe. Now, there are precise occult definitions of energy, but I think they're sort of bullshit. If I was to come up with my own, see, the definition of energy in science is the capacity to do work, right? Now, energy in a spiritual sense is, think about the capacity. What makes something spiritual? It's the intelligence or the idea of intelligence behind it. I don't necessarily think or not think that the universe has any inherent intelligence. I don't think anything is inherent, really. But that's the difference. So if you want to come up with a more precise definition of energy in the occult parlance, you could say, what's the capacity to do work? It moves, it's motion. Now there's potential energy which doesn't move, but it's there as potential, you see? So energy to me is what's called motive power. It's the ability to direct motion and action, but there may be different degrees of fineness of motion. Putting things in motion might not always actually be in motion. There could be potential spiritual energy. One of my gurus who I followed for many years, the Sri Maharaj Nisargadatta, a student once asked him he asked a student rather. He said, get rid of name and form and desire, and what are you left with? And his student said, nothing. And Nisargadatta says, yes. Only the void remains. But the void itself is filled to the brim, right? With potential. He said the void is the eternal potential as consciousness is the eternal actual. You see how things are based on contradiction. Another one of my heroes, the Buddhist philosopher Nagarjuna, he wrote The Middle Way, the Mula Madhyamaka, right? Or I think it was all sort of oral tradition for a long time, like many Buddhist texts or documents were. And he used to say, it exists is an eternalist view. It doesn't exist is an annihilationist idea. Therefore, the wise person finds recourse neither in existence nor non-existence. It's the middle way. What does that mean? I don't know. But the void, the concept of nothing, right? Because I believe in nothing, but there's more to nothing than we typically think, right? It's conditionless. The Buddha said nothing is conditionless, basically, in so many words. He also said nothing is changeless. Nothing is independent. So the only thing we have that fits the bill of whatever God is, right? Or the soul is nothing. And I have a dear friend, a dear, dear friend, who's a Pisces. You know how Pisces are, right? He says, for him, the liminal space is our spiritual, whatever that means. I mean, what's spiritual, what's not spiritual, I don't know. I mean, you could say everything is spiritual, really, or nothing is. But the liminal space is the space between. Lao Tzu, in the Tao Te Ching, he says, we fashion clay into a pot, but it's the emptiness inside that holds what we want. 4 walls make a house, but it's the empty space inside that makes a home. You see? We don't appreciate emptiness. We don't appreciate because we don't look at it. We don't try and notice it. Everything else is way more interesting. Aliens, pyramids, conspiracy theories, right? The weather gun, right? All this sort of stuff. I clicked the bell, but I haven't been getting notifications. I'm so sorry, baby. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I've been here for almost 3 hours. That sucks. Sibonic family, I love this kind of discussion. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I hope Max likes this too. I hope all of you like it, because I just beat this chart to death. Well, I'm sorry you didn't see that, Grayson. You clicked the bell. I mean, I had a stream scheduled, but then I had to end it and restart because of technical difficulties. You see? Technical difficulties. So I'm only saying, oh, books. So we talked about the Picatrix, astrological magic. I still have made personal talismans, astrological talismans. I have a Venus talisman that I made after a big breakup. And believe me, the past year, I've gotten pretty lucky, you know. I've had more than 20 partners in just the last year, which is pretty cool. And that's always what I wanted, you know. But now I gotta focus more on work. Now the other one here, Max, is Hellenistic Astrology, or was it Alani? Hellenistic Astrology by Chris Brennan. This is also very good. But I always say, please get Demetra George's book. Now, this one's very important to me. This is more history. It's the history of Bronze Age, ancient Mesopotamia, where astrology came from. And this book is very important to me because it has to do with the source of all astrology, you see. It has to do with ancient divination and where all this stuff came from, right? Astrology goes back, you know, well, anyway, if you want to know all the history, become a member and go watch my my educational videos. Now, this is if you're going to get an astrology book, get Demetra George, Ancient Astrology, Theory and Practice. Those are the money books. Those are the money books right there. If you're going to get another one, get Chris Brennan. These other things are more companions, I guess. This is Vedius Valens, right? He was an astrologer from the 2nd century CE, right? Very old, like 2,000 years ago. So this is very important stuff because you can see the basis of the meanings of the planets and the signs and ancient techniques. That's a primary source we have. Oh, my kiddo. I'm so sorry. Yeah, go take care of your kiddo. I'm a parent too. I have a 11-year-old. Oh, here we go. Everyone, if you're going to do any astrology, you should own an ephemeris and you should learn how to read it. People don't typically read ephemerides, right? Because we have all these software programs that do it for us. So, but you should get familiar with an ephemeris. I've still been meaning to learn about how to cast charts by hand, like all the math and stuff. And then this is Saturn, a new look at an old devil. I mean, there's some bad stuff in here, like just stuff I disagree with, but Liz Green was one of my heroes growing up, you know. When I started modern astrology, trust me though, ancient astrology is way more effective, way more practical. It's just not as touchy-feely. So a lot of people get like, ah, you know, why does it all have to be so mean? Man, it's so funny. They get all bent out of shape about terms like malefic and benefic. And they say, well, nothing's really good or bad. It's all spiritual. It's all subjective. Okay. But when you get slapped in the face, how does it feel? I mean, some of us like that, you know. But typically not very good. Especially if it's not consensual, you know. Typically. Does anyone else want a reading? Or does anyone else have any questions? I mean, I can help you understand your chart. We got a few minutes left, you know. I think Sibinik had another discussion, or sorry, another question. Another question. Who else is here? Otherwise, I'll keep talking about the election, because that's what I started off this conversation with, all right? We looked at Kamala's chart. There's a lot of good stuff. Transits happening for her. Right? Where's Kamala? Where's Kamala? Let's go to a bi-wheel. If no one else is saying anything, I'm going to Kamala's chart. And Trump's chart. View a bi-wheel. Kamala. Kamala. Mamala. Oops, that's the wrong one. I hate when technology, it's like Jurassic Park, only not as dangerous, like technology failing. It's not even Mercury retrograde. Next year, Mercury and Venus are going to go retrograde at the same time. Oh, Grayson. Okay, cool. Yeah, and Grayson, these are going to start like the replays. Like I'll do live streams live, but then other people, you know, have to watch it. Other people have to watch it on, what's it called? Members. It'll be members only. So I'll get you, Grayson, and I can stop talking about Kamala. However, bi-wheel, yo. The fuck? Why is my bi-wheel not showing up? Anyway, let's just go to Grayson. Ugh. Why does Streamlabs do this shit? Properties. Let's go to this. Okay. Properties. Let's go to that. Why was that so fucking hard for this software? I'll get you, Grayson. Sorry. I was looking at Kamala and I'm like, Jupiter conjunct the North Node and the Ascendant. Now, Trump has Jupiter conjunct the North Node. Um, so you could listen to me talk all day. Well, I mean, I do typically. My girlfriend has to listen to me talk all day. But you see, this is really auspicious here. It really is. Now, Saturn's in the 10th house, which seems kind of rough, right? But Trump has Saturn in the in the 8th house, which is losses. So anyway, let's get Grayson on here. I'm sorry. It's just, I get so frustrated with all this technology. I think I might still have you. Let me see if I do. No, I don't. It must have gotten deleted. What city are you, Grayson? I need your city. What city was it, my dear? What city? Oops. What city, my love? What city, my love? What city? Oh, wait, let me go back to, maybe you said it in this chat. What city, my love? Which city? In the city of good old Watts. In the city of LA. In the city of Compton. Keep me rocking. I need your city, baby. I need your city. I don't see a city. We built this city. Right? We built this city on rock and roll. Grayson, please tell me your city. Rocky Mount. Okay, there we go. Rocky Mount. Okay, I hope you've been okay from all the storms. No. Hi, cat. Okay. Hi, sweetheart. Another Aquarius rising. There's been a lot of us today. I think I've had 3 or 4 Aquarius risings. Saturn, your Saturn is conjunct my rising. That's pretty interesting. We both have him retrograde. Of course, you know Saturn rules Aquarius, so you know, my grandmommy Saturn is very happy in Aquarius, but she's retrograde in your first house, right? That can be kind of difficult. Like for health stuff. It can make us codependent in relationships, you see? It can be. Is there a different chat? I have 2 chats because I'm on Twitch and YouTube. So I don't know, maybe it's delayed or something. I have it on live chat. I have it on live chat. So anyway. So the big thing for you though? God, Pluto moon. How come so many of us have Pluto moon? Jeez. Bye, sweetheart. Have a good day. But Pluto moon is so rough, isn't it? You know? Pluto moon is, you know, you probably have a difficult relationship with your mother. And the moon rules Cancer, your 6th house. You know? Sixth house. She's a sixth house. And in your 10th, do you work in the medical profession? Do you have anything to do with medical stuff or universities, perhaps? I don't remember. Anyway, the big thing for you is the money situation. The money situation is fucking rough for us right now. I'm feeling the hurt. Now, let me tell you, we had the lunar eclipse in our 2nd house. We have Saturn going through our 2nd house, right? Jupiter, right? Jupiter is retrograde in Gemini, right? Sort of square Saturn. So Jupiter rules our 2nd house, you see? So all of that is money trouble. It's sort of like, the reality of your financial situation is starting to hit. Usually it's like a rude awakening to the financial situation, you see? So that's something to be aware of. Often it's a rude awakening to the financial situation. Maybe you were bleeding money before, and now you're aware of the need to budget yourself or to develop a plan for your finances. That could also be. So, that Scorpio moon is rough. Yeah. Scorpio moon is very rough. And it's square your ascendant. So your emotional volatility actually gets in the way of your life direction, right? It gets in the way of you achieving your dharma, right? It also, can be difficult for your health. So I don't know if you've had health difficulties, but I imagine that you may have a chronic condition. But I don't, however, that's what I wanted to do before becoming a psalm. What's a psalm? What's a psalm? I don't know that term. Anyway. Mars rules your 10th house also and is in Libra, which tells me career and life direction have been quite difficult. But sometimes I see that with people who do political work or work in a legal field or something. Something like that. But your moon is up there at the top of your chart, which is quite interesting. And relatively close to your midheaven, you see. So, wow. So the moon is still angular. Do you have anything to do with the military? Perhaps you got a bad reputation here and there. Or you get caught, maybe you've been caught in a scandal. So, you have a few different health issues. Yeah, that's sort of par for the course. Stay-at-home mom. 4th house ruler is Venus in the 7th house. What about Mercury in the 8th house? Did you have a miscarriage at some point? Did you have a miscarriage at some point? Sometimes that's a thing. You see, but there's signatures of codependency with Saturn in the 1st house and Venus in the 7th. So even though Venus is in Leo and we think someone who's, confident and all that sort of stuff, or, can be sort of confident in how they deal with people, Venus at the same time also gets possessive in the 7th, or in Leo. But then in the 7th house, she gets very simpy. She gets very simpy for partners and people, which can lead her into codependent situations, you see. But she's about to station retrograde too. Like she's stationing retrograde in your chart. Was dad married multiple times? Bad rep in high school. Was dad married multiple times? I mean, I bet you have a reputation for being You know, up and down the bipolar coaster with Pluto moon and mama trauma. You probably had a bad experience of religion growing up. Anyway, you don't care about that. What you do care, you did actually. You did have a miscarriage, I imagine that's what you're saying. And I say that because your fifth house ruler is Mercury in the eighth house. You see? That's why I'm saying that. And Mercury also rules your eighth house. I have something similar, right? Mercury rules my eighth house, right? And is in my fourth. And my dad passed away. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But that is important stuff. To me, the focus should be about the money situation. But in 2026, let's look at these eclipses. Eclipses. So that's Virgo. That's Pisces. So let's go to 2026. So we're going to have a solar eclipse in our first house, February of 2026. This is a big fucking deal, yo. Big fucking deal, yo. Let's see, what's the date here? 2/17, right around Valentine's Day. And then I gotta go eat. So this is gonna be in our first house at the very end of Aquarius. But still, very, very interesting. So you see, we're gonna be moving into a phase of existential crisis and all that right now. But you see, you're going through this whole like death and giving up and financial phase, you know? Dad bounced when I was 2. Yes, he was. And I was a bit promiscuous in high school and was known to be a hothead. Yeah, see, I wish I was all those things in high school, but I became them now, you know? Anyway, I do have to go because I have to go eat and it's been 3 hours. So, but 2025 is going to be a wild year, you see? Because all this stuff is going through our 8th and 2nd house. So you may even have to deal with a significant death in your life. I don't know. But that would be, see, I'm going to have this too. It could be inheritance or some sort. Like it could be, I don't want to think it's a loss of money. I don't want to think that, you know, but it could be. Gosh, what is? Could be a lot of different things. I typically think death or a big gift of money, making money from an investment. I don't know if you have any of that. Inheritance, investment, that kind of stuff. So I'm hoping more for positive connotations. But right now, every indicator states that you've been bleeding money and having a difficult time. So that's what I would be focusing on, you see. Anyway, I hope that's all good. I love you all. And now I've got to bounce. More bounce to the ounce. And please consider becoming a member. Like the stream. Follow on Twitch. Subscribe on YouTube. Become a member. Get astrology classes from me when you're a member.